It really is true that no matter how many times you debunk a moronic concept, the woos keep coming back with it as if you never said anything. Case in point, socialists and all their whining about workers being exploited. That's a wonderful little word, isn't it? Exploited. It doesn't actually mean anything, but it sounds bad. The dictionary definition of exploit is simply to make use of something, but politicians and socialists and other authoritarians love using this word to imply some sort of unfairness or coercion in order to justify things that they apparently have no other way of justifying. So by giving someone a job and paying wages they're agreeable to, you're exploiting them. The only answer I've ever been able to get out of Marxists of all kinds as to what this actually means is for them to bring up another bogus concept, surplus labor. Since the business owner takes in more money than the worker gets paid, this is unfair and exploitation. Sorry, but if you want to define a term and have it not be a bogus talking point, you can't define it using another bogus talking point. That's just circular. You have to break out of your little Marxist circle at some point. They really don't seem to have a good answer as to why a worker would agree to this instead of just doing the job on his own and making the full amount of money, or why anyone should create a business to begin with if they're not going to make any money from it. I've never understood why Marxists think that everyone who works for a company deserves to be paid except the owner. They always talk about workers seizing the means of production, but they never seem to want to talk about how the means of production gets created in the first place. I really want to destroy this concept of surplus labor once and for all. To do that, let's look at a hypothetical business that creates and sells widgets. Alice owns and operates Alice's Widgets. She is the only one involved in this business. She has no workers, so she can't possibly be exploiting anyone. She works at her business 5 days a week. She spends an entire day on executive tasks. All the finances, finding new investors, making sure old investors are paid off, managing the company's long-term goals, operations, marketing, strategy, resource management, regulatory compliance, sales, PR, all sorts of things. She does this every Monday, and this task is responsible for bringing in $1,000 in revenues. On Tuesday, she goes out purchasing the materials from which widgets are made. This task brings in $100. On Wednesday, she spends all day making the widgets, and that portion of the business is responsible for bringing in $150 a day. On Thursday, she warehouses all the widgets she made so they can await sales. That brings in $80 a day. And on Friday, she delivers widgets to the retailers, which brings in $70 a day. So every week, she's making $1,400 doing all of these tasks. One day, she looks around and sees Bob, Carol, David, and Aaron and sees that they're unemployed. They're currently bringing in $0 a week. So she hires them, assigning them the jobs they're best suited to based on their skill sets. Alice still does all of the executive tasks, many of which can't be delegated to a worker, but now she's free to do this 5 days a week, so she brings in $5,000 every week. She hires Bob to do the purchasing. Now, here's the important part. We're not going to extract any so-called surplus labor. We're going to pay Bob exactly what his job brings in, no more, no less. $100 a day, so he gets $500 a week. We do the same with Carol, who makes the widgets and makes $750 a week. She puts David in warehousing and pays him $400 a week, and makes Aaron the delivery person, paying her $350 a week. All of this is exactly the same as what Alice brought in when she was doing all those tasks herself, so there's no surplus labor. So Alice's business is now 5 times the size that it was, bringing in $7,000 a week instead of just $1,400. But look at what happened. By hiring these people, Alice has created $3,600 in additional pay for herself, paying her workers a total of $2,000. This is the point where Marxist ignoramuses start shouting, "Exploitation! Surplus labor!" Even though we've already established that there is no such thing going on here. The only thing that's happening is Marxists being completely ignorant of what goes into running a business. But what would happen if the Marxists were right? What if Alice was greedy and decided to pay Bob $400 a week instead of $500? Since Bob is capable of bringing in $500 a week, that means there's a market incentive for some other business owner to offer Bob more money for doing the same job. This is why you see businesses like Walmart and Target get into bidding wars, increasing their starting pay for new employees. This whole surplus labor thing is something that just cannot happen in a free market. When Marxists cry exploitation and surplus labor, you now know what they're talking about. They're ignoring everything the owner puts into the business and pretending that the workers are responsible for all of the business's revenues. The next time some Marxist tries pulling that crap on you, just show him these numbers. They expose very clearly what the Marxists are really seeing and what they're completely ignorant about. I've said it before, I'll say it again, and I'll keep saying it till it sinks in. If anyone's exploiting the workers, why isn't it the politicians and other authoritarians who promise something for nothing as they continue to advocate one socialist policy after another that really just destroys jobs and benefits their big corporate cronies? Until next time, stay strong and be free.